Hey Tommy, what is the most popular car that Lexus sells? In fact, half of every car that Lexus sells is this model.
Well, it's the Lexus RX, Dad. It's the right size, it's got the right price for a lot of folks, and in this video we are reviewing one of the newest of the lot, the RX 500h F-Sport Performance. Now, there are a few different versions of the RX, including the gasoline model, the hybrid model, and this is kind of the highest performance version. So we're looking at a 366 horsepower hybrid system that makes over 400 pound-feet of torque and 0 to 60 in the mid-5s. This is a pretty quick RX, Dad.
Yeah, but it is a 4-cylinder turbo. In fact, the same 4-cylinder turbo that's going to go in the new Tacoma. So you want to see it?
Now, it's a 2.4 liter, and it actually is combined with a 6-speed automatic and 2 electric motors. So there's a sandwich motor near the transmission, and then there's one on the rear axle. It's got the all-wheel drive system. Now, what's cool about this system, Dad, is it's got a real 6-speed automatic. Unlike other generations of the RX Hybrid that used a eCVT, this is a good old-fashioned auto.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's got an automatic. It really brings the car to life, and it makes it much more fun to drive. In fact, this car is surprisingly quick. When you floor it, there's some beans under the hood, Tommy.
There sure are, Dad, but unfortunately, as quick as it is, it does come with some compromises from a driving experience, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, the new RX generation is certainly a polarizing design, Dad. There is a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that giant spindle grille. I would say we're at max spindle with this car, and it really depends on if you love that or not. I don't love it myself. I think it's gotten a little too big. You know, every time we get to max anything, then the pendulum swings the other way. You're seeing it with BMW now. I think you'll see it with Lexus. But yeah, we're definitely max spindle. You know, there's a lot going on. Maybe, dare I say, too much. A lot of different cut lines, a lot of different shapes. I love the color. I'm just not enamored by, you know, all the different angles that are intersecting, both diagonal and horizontal and vertical and round. There's just a lot.
Now let's talk about the trunk space, Dad. That is important. Of course, we got the full LED treatment on the taillights. We're looking at about 29.6 cubic feet worth of space behind the second row. We got the view blocker back there. Now the hybrid battery lives underneath the rear seat. We also have a 1500 watt inverter in this car, which is great for those that want to go out and do some camping. Of course, you got the F-Sport floor mat, and then underneath there, you're going to find a space saver, but a pretty attractive looking little space saver as well. So not a full size, but at least you're not stranded in the event of a tire blowout. And Dad, you want to go try the rear seat space?
Yeah, you know, Lexus lent us this car while we're visiting my mom, your grandma here in Florida, and I'm going to say the people here in Florida love this car, Tommy. I've never seen so many people come up to me and say, what a beautiful color and what a beautiful car. There is certainly a lot of love for the RX in Florida, but you know, full-size panoramic sunroof, which unfortunately does cut down on headroom, as you can see. Plenty of leg room, but my hair is hitting the top on not a lot of headroom for somebody that's 6'2"-ish.
Now, Dad, one thing which is kind of cool is we do have on this particular model a power reclining second row seat, which is very, very fancy. We also have heated and ventilated second row seats with a third zone of climate control and 2 USB-C ports. So the rear seat is very well equipped, Dad, but I want to start talking about one of this car's biggest issues. And why don't you hop in the front and we're going to show what that is. Now, immediately, there are 2 issues with the initial experience with the RX. This generation of Lexus door handle is really not very well integrated. So the opening mechanism is fine. You reach behind and push a button. But a lot of folks this week that have gotten in and out of this car are really struggling with the out function. So you push in to unlatch the door handle, but you have to push in and push the door out kind of in one motion. If you don't, it kind of gets stuck on the jamb, and it's very confusing, especially for older folks. And there is, of course, a manual override if you pull out like that.
Well, it confuses people because you can push down on it and you can pull on it, and they kind of both do the same thing. The other thing that's very confusing is in the display here, you can change how those door locks work. So you could have it locked, and when you put the car in park, it stays locked. So you have to physically unlock the door on that side and then push the button, then get out. Or you could set it so that when you put it in park, it unlocks the doors. But oftentimes, let's say you're pulling up to some place and you're dropping people off, you don't put it in park, and then that door does not open easily. And you know, your mom and your stepdad struggled with that mightily this week, trying to figure out how to open the doors. And the other problem is it's they're heavy, dude. I mean, this is a heavy door for me. When you're in your 80s, that door is super heavy. So if any car needed, that self-opening mechanism, it would be this one.
Now let's talk about the big issue I have with this interior, and that has to do with the seat. So I get that this is the F-Sport performance model, but the seats are far too bolstered and they're just far too narrow. So I'm not a particularly large person. I've got no strength whatsoever. Let me introduce you to Squirrel and Gerbil here. But generally, like, the bolstering is way too tight for someone who's thin. And how do you do someone who's more maybe American-sized, Dad?
Well, to me, the best way I would sum it up is the form says crossover, but the seats say LFA.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. I really don't know what Lexus was thinking. And I've experienced other RX seats. They're fine. They're really comfortable. But this F-Sport Performance is ridiculously over-bolstered.
Too much bolstering, and even this part is too firm. I mean, Toyota's having some issues with their seating. The Tundra I also did not particularly love, and now this Lexus. And once again, keep in mind, this is for the sports edition of the RX. A lot of these issues, except for the doors, will be much different if you get...
Yeah, the standard seats are fine. They're great.
Yeah.
Now, as we step inside here, I do love this interior design. This kind of double pane look. This backlit LED step is fantastic. Got a really nice finish across the dash. The Mark Levinson sound system with the patterned suede across the door is beautiful. And the 14-inch screen, it's a little big, Dad. It does take up a huge amount of the dash area. But, you get pretty used to it, and it is ultimately fairly easy to use, if not a little slow sometimes.
Well, my problem with that giant display is there's some really beautiful touches in there, both stylistically, little diamonds in the rough. I'll give you one right there. There's a little thing that says push right here, and when you push it, it actually raises that cup, so you can have it for deep cups or shallow cups. That's a nice little touch. It's a very thoughtful touch, but I get in this car and all I see is screen, right? It takes me a while to actually figure out that this does something cool besides, this giant screen. It just takes up all the air in the room.
360-degree camera in this particular car, which works pretty well. And let's take it for a spin, Dad. Now, some other things that are a little fussy, I find, you do have a couple different drive modes, but there's no obvious button for it. What you have to do is cycle to a menu with the touch capacitive or touch sensitive buttons on the steering wheel, and then use these little scrolls to go between cruise control or the sport mode menu. You can't have both active at the same time, which I find to be a little frustrating. Same thing with that center display. You do have to cycle back and forth between it. It's a little fussy. One thing which isn't fussy, the interior quality here is great. I do like this dual fold opening center armrest. Everything lines up beautifully. Everything is very well made. No squeaks and rattles as you'd expect out of a Lexus product.
Well, I just think, anytime you have three screens, right? You have this screen, you have that screen, and you have the heads-up screen, and then you try to control all that, or much of it, with the steering wheel, it gets very confusing. And granted, my mom, your grandma, they're in their 80s now, so this is probably beyond the demographic that this car is most popular with, but it does show that maybe the technology has gotten ahead of the customer base. By the way, let's talk some numbers. How much does this car start at?
Well, this RX 500H is going to run you about 64 and some change starting. Fully optioned up, fully equipped, you're going to be in the mid 70s. So we're over 70 on a vehicle like this with a lot of the options. And look, I will say, you want to give it a quick squirt of acceleration?
Yeah, here's what I love about it. I mean, this is, like I said, the engine also says in some ways LFA.
A little bit of the lag.
And that. If you're hearing that, that's not real engine note that's piped in here, but it's darn quick. Okay, maybe not LFA quick, but certainly quick for a luxurious, big SUV that has gotten very heavy because of all the features that it has.
4,793 pounds right around the curb weight, and the thing hauls butt. 0 to 60 in the mid 5s. This is a quick car. Even, by performance SUV standards, this thing really boogies. But my big issue with it, that is, the driving experience doesn't necessarily match the acceleration. So the acceleration's impressive, but the steering is very dead. The chassis composure is very soft and yet bouncy at the same time, especially over small undulating bumps. The suspension just doesn't feel super well tuned in the F-Sport Performance version. You get a lot of feedback in places you don't want feedback, but places you do want feedback, like the steering and the brakes, it's all pretty dead. And then you definitely get the sensation of being pulled from the front-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive system instead of pushed like you would in a BMW X5 or X3. So look, it's kind of a frustrating driving experience because it really surprises people off the line. It's got great acceleration, but it doesn't match that in the turns, and it's a little too bouncy for everyday driving.
Yeah, I think when Lexus plays to its strengths, right, which is build quality, which is reliability, which is luxury, then the car does really, really well. It's when it starts to play or tries to play in the German pond, right? When now you're trying to compete with the BMW X5, that's when all of a sudden you start to see the shortcomings. When you're starting to talk about the dynamics of the vehicle, that's where I think Lexus certainly doesn't have the same amount of not just history, but actually real performance fortitude that the Germans bring to the table.
I do say I really am impressed with the quietness of the cabin, especially at highway speeds. Very well insulated.
Oh my God, this is the most quiet car I think I've driven all year.
And we also have all of the Lexus safety tech in here as well. So, you know, you got blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise, forward collision alert. The lane centering is really good. All that is actually very easy to use. So they did a really nice job with the safety tech. And it's a great kind of long distance car except for the ride quality. And here's the issue with the RX that is the car is awesome. It's a really well made platform with kind of bold design and a nice interior. It's just the F Sport touches on this particular one that really brings down the experience in my mind.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the fuel economy. See, I'm already lost.
So
there.
you gotta, I'll help you see if I can navigate. You gotta push and hold this.
Yes.
And now I think you can, I can't see what I'm doing, it's in the heads up display.
Oh.
One of the buttons you push and hold and then you can cycle.
Okay, there we go, I see. Cruise control.
You gotta cycle out of
Okay,
that.
now
I think it's this one.
Let's see.
There you go, I got it. Total average speed, fuel economy, 24.6.
Yeah, so, you know, for a hybrid, we've been driving this now for about, 400 miles?
Yep.
That's good. I mean, it's a big, crossover. It's not great. It's not, you're not like wowing me with Prius numbers or with, EV numbers, but, 24.6 is not horrible.
Well, Lexus rates this at about 27 mpg combined.
Yeah.
Up to 28 depending on the driving conditions. So yeah, it's okay. It's pretty good, but I really think that it's a little bit hampered by these wheel and tire package. So look, I mean, I think that the RX, like I mentioned, is definitely a buy it for me. It's just this F Sport performance. Save your money. Get the plug-in hybrid I just drove. That's a very impressive car. Get the standard, even the gasoline only one is very good, but it's just this high performance hybrid that doesn't make sense.
No, I mean, if you're going to make this the performance top dog of the brand, put a dual turbo, twin turbo straight six into it. Not a 4-cylinder turbo. I think
but the hybrid system kind of compensates up to that. You get a really nice push, especially with the 6-speed auto. It's an engaging powertrain. I really do enjoy the powertrain.
Yeah, I mean, 4-cylinder turbos are great in small hatchbacks, and of course, like Lexus has added the hybridization, if that's a word, to make up for the horsepower. But if you're going to do that, why don't you take that 3-cylinder from the GR Corolla with 300 horsepower and stick it in here and really end up with.
Well, you're going to have a. No, that's not the right choice.
Why not? Let's go crazy.
The 2.4, I think, is equally as powerful as the GR engine because it's a larger displacement, more cylinder, turbocharged powertrain. No, that's a terrible choice.
Okay, well, you don't like my idea.
No,
huh?
I don't like your idea.
But it would be unique, right? It would be unique.
The issue is not with the powertrain in this car. I think it's fantastic. The issue is with the chassis and some of the fiddliness that it's attached to.
Well, I pulled over here in front of the boats and in front of the ocean because this is just a beautiful place to test drive a Lexus. I think this is a natural home of this. I think a lot of people here are going to be buying this kind of car. And I think I could highly recommend this car, Tommy, if you don't go for the F Sport version, right? If you just go for the normal one and leave, I guess, the performance maybe to the LFA.
Well, guys, let us know what you think in the comments. This has been Tommy.
And Roman saying thanks for watching. And you know how much LFAs go for now?
Yeah, like $500,000 or
I think more
than that,
They're close to
800,
millions.
900. Yeah.
So maybe that's not a great solution. See you guys next time. Ciao.